I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams. Today we have another amazing guest. He performed as the magical Mr. Mistoffelees on the 5th U.S. National Tour. So welcome, McCree O'Kelley, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
I'm excited to have you because this tour went on for 10 years, and I think it's always an interesting piece, but you were in the very first group. So we'll get to that because I have a lot of questions about the introduction of this tour to the U.S. But let's start with your cat's history. Were you the 1998 Obsessed movie? Did you see as a kid? What was your introduction?
No, I'm too old for that. I saw. I was in 6th grade, and I had gone on a community theater trip to New York, and we saw a Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, and the last day we saw Cats. And I really think that weekend changed my life. It was the first time that I realized what I wanted to do with my life. It was very clear to me that I wanted to be on stage, and I wanted to live in New York. So that was a really pivotal moment. I saw the other shows, but I didn't necessarily see myself in either of Phantom or Les Mis, but Cats I really connected with, and specifically with Mr. Mistoffelees. I had started taking dance around that time, and so I was really drawn to that character, that solo, and it was kind of a dream come true that it all worked out.
Wow. And what age was this? How old were you?
I was in 6th grade. So what's that, 11, 12?
Yeah. Okay. So 6th grade. Okay. So 11, 12, it's a community theater program. Where are you from originally? And you kind of came to New York for this?
Yeah. Columbia, South Carolina. So, I moved to New York actually when I was 16 to go to ballet school. I went to the School of American Ballet. I'd started with community theater, but then ballet just kind of took over my life, and that really was my passion. And so I moved to New York, and after that I joined a ballet company, and then found my way back to New York.
I love it. So you're going as a theater production, but you're a dancer, and so you've got this you see these 3 classics, and 2 of them are not as dance heavy. I think there's still some dance, but then Cats is just pure dance all the time. It's nonstop, and you were like, this is my future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. As a 6th grader, you're kind of right on that fringe age of fully understanding what you saw, and also a lot of it probably still going over your head, because you're just before that age of puberty probably, where you'd recognize some of the chaos. So did any of that stuff resonate? What is the 6th grader view of Cats? Not at all.
It did not. Okay. So much of it went over my head. I guess fortunately, probably.
Yeah.
I do remember thinking that there was a sexual energy with Rum Tum Tugger, and but all of the stuff in the ball, the stuff with Victoria, all of that, it was just pure dance for me.
And I think that's probably the best way to see it. What did you, as a 6th grader, comprehend any of the plot, or was it just, this is really cool dancing with cats?
No, I did not comprehend any of the plot. Not really. I just, it is, you see these little vignettes, and I didn't see how they were all tying together necessarily. But I was very entertained. And I think as a 6th grader, that's really all you care about.
Yeah. And you said it was last too. So it was probably, you saw these 2 other very big, heavy production, not heavy, but big productions. And then you go and see Cats, which is also a big production, but a very different production.
Exactly. Very different. I mean, I was I remember being very moved by Les Mis. But I knew I wasn't that kind of singer. I didn't see that show and think, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas with Cats, I was like, okay, that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. So then fast forward, you're in New York now as a 16-year-old. Have you, like, when's the next time you actually got exposed to the show? Was it the 98 movie? Did you see it again?
I saw it again. I remember when I was in school there, a friend from Columbia came into town and we went to see the production. I hadn't seen it probably since I was in sixth grade. And my journey had really shifted, and I was really very focused on getting in a ballet company at that point. So it didn't really hit the same way. I still really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like I have to do that. But it was still a part of me. Like I was still connected to that show and specifically that character. Yeah. The original Mistoffelees was a ballet dancer in the London production. So it was a principal dancer from like the Royal Ballet. So that role was really created on a ballet dancer, which is why, originally he didn't sing. It wasn't until it moved to Broadway and then the character did sometimes sing that verse.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of it where, like, there's a lot of the changes in Cats has been because it seems like there's a different person doing it and they kind of mold slight tweaks around the performer, and then it either sticks or it goes back and it goes in. But I kind of love that, it seems like Victoria and Mistoffelees are the two where children will see it and say, that's my future, because especially dance. And then there's a bunch of the other Cats where it's like no one goes and is like, I want to be Bustifer when I watch it. Like there's not that like visceral reaction to it. But those two seem to be the two that are the most common.
That's true. Yeah. And I think they're featured in a way that dancers really connect to. They're given these solos that are quite difficult. And very virtuosic. And so they stand out, even though neither one of them really says much.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, you're saying through dance, like it's much more of the artistic interpretation than like let's use the lyrics for it.
Right.
Okay, I want to fast forward to the tour. So like you have this as a sixth grader, you now in 2001, like, did the audition come to you? How did you end up with like this is actually a possibility that I could become this character that made me realize I wanted to be a professional dancer? So
I had been a member of Atlanta Ballet for 2 years and had decided that I wanted to move to New York. Because a dancer's career is short. And I was really drawn to doing some more commercial musical theater type things. So I had moved to New York in 2000, and then I had come back to Atlanta to do a performance with Atlanta Ballet, and so I actually missed the audition, which was kind of devastating. Oh, wow. Yeah. And fortunately, they didn't find a Mistoffelees, and a casting director who I had auditioned for previously and for something else reached out and wondered if I was interested, and I said absolutely, but I'm in Atlanta now. And he said, well, contact me when you get back, and if we still haven't found someone, we'll bring you in. So I reached out, and Richard Stafford, who was the director, was choreographing a production of My Fair Lady. So they asked me to come in and do that audition. And so I did that audition, and then he asked me to stay and do the turns in second. And then he asked me to sing, and that did not go as well. And I remember him saying something like, that's okay, he doesn't have to sing. And so he actually offered me the role right there. He said that, they would contact me with a contract in the next hour. And yeah, it never happens like that. It never happens that quickly. Usually there's such a process of callbacks and so I really just, it was fate. And it was a really great day. I remember getting the call and saying yes immediately. I didn't do any negotiating. I was just thrilled.
Sure. Well, whatever you want. I love that.
I'll pay you to do it.
Yeah. So wait, did you audition for My Fair Lady as part of this?
I mean, that wasn't really. He knew I was there to be seen for Cats.
Okay. So, I could just imagine you like, that's a totally different show. Going in to like do a couple other numbers, and it's like, oh, and by the way, just do the Mistoffelees turns.
And really, that's all he wanted to see. I mean, because the choreography for My Fair Lady was so vastly different from anything that relates to Cats. But I think, the Mistoffelees role, like, you have to be able to do those turns. And so,
yeah, I mean, it's a critical part. Did you sing anything? Like, what was the song you sang?
You've never heard of it because it's called How'd You Like to Love Me? Because I'm not a strong singer. And so I would pick songs that were so obscure that no one had ever heard them before. So, that
so you can make them your own.
Yeah, and they couldn't compare it. So they were always like songs no one has ever heard of before.
It's a smart strategy.
Thanks.
It
worked for me sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so now this is the part I want to talk to you about because I haven't really dove into. I've talked to a lot of people on the 5th tour, but it went for 10 years,
right?
And you were the first group. So I know Colin was on the tour. Colin Cunliffe, we talked to him, but he was also on the revival. So we never really focused on this part of the tour. I'm interested to hear what it was like creating this tour because you are almost restarting what the America is going to see outside of New York that hasn't been on tour in a while. So how much of that was like thought about? How much of that went into this rehearsal process? Like, what was that transition of we're about to bring this back on and let America see it again?
I feel really fortunate that I got to be a part of it because you're right. It is very special. I mean, it had been running so continuously. People were just being put in. It was rare that an entire group of people were coming together and learning the material for the first time. So that was very, very bonding and really did create this tribe. There was only one person, Shiloh Smith, who was the white cat, who had done the production previously, and she had done it in Germany. But the rest of us were
in German, right? Like in a totally different language. And
yes. Yeah. And we were very young. I was 22, and I would say that was about the average age. Cats is so physical. That's not that unusual, but we were young, and for most of us, I think it was our first big job. So it was very exciting. We were all totally invested in the process. And we had the luxury of time. We spent 4 or 5 weeks in New York just rehearsing all together. And then we had 6 weeks in Atlantic City for previews. And so that was a really nice opportunity to put the show together and without so much pressure because you're in Atlantic City and the audience is pretty drunk and really just wants to get back to the gambling table. So it gave us an opportunity to really put the show together.
That's so funny you say that because I like the minute you said Atlantic City for 6 days, I was like, what a definition of the junkyard. Like it's insane. A junkyard in America.
It was crazy. I remember one night, it was just a bizarre experience, but this woman at the end of Memory just yelled out, "Sing it again." I was like, where are we?
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about what that rehearsal process is like. Since you had time, how much of the story and show did you go through, and how much like relationship of the characters did you get to build out because you had that 5 weeks of rehearsal and then 6 weeks of previews that you don't necessarily always get on a tour?
Right. So we spent, I remember the first week was just music, and I was sure I was going to be fired because Richard wasn't there yet. No one else had seen me. Kristen Blodgett is this huge figure in the musical theater world. And I remember the first day, everyone's like dividing into their vocal parts. And she asked me what part I was. And I was like, I'm Mr. Mistoffelees. Yeah. And she was like, no, vocally, like, are you a tenor? I have no idea. But we really had a week just to focus on the music. And then Sam came in and we learned the ball first. And then I remember spending time just roaming around the studio acting like cats. Mm-hmm. And I remember we went to a pet store as a group and watched cats roam around the pet store. And so we spent time on just the felinity. But a lot of that for me translated as a ballet dancer because I think there's such a grace to a cat that so many of their movements I kind of found in the choreography and in, the cat doesn't make a mistake. It falls, but then it recovers so seamlessly. Mm-hmm. And so much of the ballet training worked well for me in that way.
That's fascinating. I love that. I've heard about the Felinity School so much, and every time I hear it, I kind of laugh. It's like extreme method acting, but for cats, like you're not method acting to like get in the character of a person. It's we're gonna go watch cats at a pet shop.
Right. And I remember when we were doing it and Sam would bring in like different cat toys, and at first it was just so silly, but the longer we did it and the more time we spent, we started to really get into it, and you did find movements that you could then incorporate into the work.
How long after tour did it take you to kind of break some of those mannerisms? Like, were you still walking around with your paws out after tour? No, but I do some facial things today still. I think that I'm like, oh my God, I think that's from being a cat for a year. Years later, it's still coming back. I do think there's like some nose twitches that are still there. I love it. So, okay. So I want to hear a little bit more about Atlantic City. Okay. You don't get previews that often in tour. Like you kind of just go and then especially with the tour after they, some people stay, some people go back. This one went for 10 full years. There's the 6 tours still going now. I think they're on year 2 since the pandemic, and it's just a continuation. There's like a break, but it's a continuation. What was it like having the opportunity to make adjustments like that didn't have to be on the fly?
I feel so lucky because I didn't have to learn it any other way. We really had, it was like cat's boot camp almost for 6 weeks. We had all of the choreography and all of that we learned in New York, but there's something about being on that set and in that, because the set is so specific and you find so many ways to use that set. And because the floor is so different too, right? The ability to like slide and so it was really we did a shortened version in Atlantic City because they didn't want an intermission. The casino didn't want. They want them only. Yeah. They want them to see a show, but only for a very short amount of time, and then back to the slots.
They don't want them away from gambling.
Exactly. So I think we did something like 10 shows a week. I remember we would have like an early and a late show some nights, and we would go and eat in the cafeteria, like in our makeup, and then go back and do it again.
That is fascinating because I just imagine, it's like Vegas and Atlantic City, those places. Nobody probably even thought a second glance at you all eating in the cafeteria in cats costumes. They're just here we are. Yeah. Did you cut certain things out?
We did.
To do it short?
Yes. I'm trying to. I know that my solo was shorter.
Okay.
I didn't have to. It was nice actually. I didn't have to do the turns in second in Atlantic City, so I was able to build up to that.
But you did all this practice because it's like the Royal Caribbean cruise went down to 90 minutes. Their version did because they, same thing. They couldn't, no one was paying for it. People were leaving intermission thinking Little Memory was the end. And then they were like, oh, I'm good. And then they leave. So they did a no intermission 90 minutes, but you're prepping to go on tour to do the full thing. And you're doing 75% of it, 60% of it. Was it a hard transition when you left Atlantic City?
Yes. Yeah. For me, it was. I don't know if for everyone, but because that solo is so it is quite long. It's almost 7 minutes and it requires so much endurance and it's technically so demanding. And the end of it is really the most difficult part. So going from that shortened version, we did pick up rehearsals in Atlantic City so that it wasn't going to be like a total shock to our system, but it was definitely different. It was a different show, going to the full version.
Yeah, this is going to be a comparison that will be very interesting for this crowd. But I was having this conversation with the Masters just happened with golf when we're recording this. And there's the whole controversial tour where they're only playing 3 days instead of 4. And I kind of like with that live tour we were talking about, is that going to change their endurance or their practice or anything? And that's exactly what I was thinking about here, which is if you're doing a 7-minute number, 8-minute number when you're going, but you're only practicing 4 or 5 minutes when you're in Atlantic City, it's almost not the same. So it's got to be like really challenging.
It was, but it gave me a lot of confidence in that first part of the solo. And I felt very comfortable. So when it did come time to do the full thing, I had built up enough muscle memory in the first part of the solo that I wasn't there wasn't that same kind of anxiety that I think I would have felt going into it and right off the bat doing the like full 7-minute version.
So I want to hear a little bit about your tour, where you went. Where was your favorite and least favorite place to go on tour?
Oh God,
on this particular tour?
We had a really nice tour, I will say. We did like places for like Boston and Chicago and San Francisco for extended sit downs from like 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, so it's not as grueling of going like the day
exactly.
or two, a couple days in and then going.
Exactly. But we did have some like never a one-nighter, but some shorter weeks. I don't want to say any cities that I disliked, but I remember loving San Francisco. We did Charlotte. Actually, Charlotte was our first city outside of Atlantic City, and that's near my hometown. So I had a lot of friends and family come to that.
I was going to ask where the closest you were to home. So that was Charlotte?
I think so. That was, yeah. So that was really special because that was our first, other than Atlantic City.
Nice.
That was kind of the big opening. It was a great opportunity to see the country. Places I never probably would have gone. We also did Canada. I remember I loved Vancouver.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had a really great setup, and we weren't a bus and truck. We flew most places. But actually 9/11 happened during our tour. We were in LA when 9/11 happened. And that definitely changed the way we traveled. Because security measures changed in the airports, and we were a large group traveling one way. And so we were flagged every single time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We were a group of cats.
Yeah. Well, they also they changed what you could bring on the plane and stuff. Like I'm sure if you had all your makeup and all the stuff that you were traveling with, that also adjusted overnight. And I'm sure it was hard with what you would have to carry with you. Like you had a bunch of things, you're on tour, you're not going home for a while, very different experience. Did you perform that night?
I don't think we did, but I don't think the show was canceled. I think we actually just
off.
It happened to be a night off. I think they would have canceled the show.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that we performed, it still felt weird to perform. Even if it was a few days after. I remember I think we sang the Star Spangled Banner to open the show or something. There was some kind of tribute that made us feel better about what we were about to do.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't a time that felt like.
Yeah, it was a weird time because there was also the sporting events kind of went on the next night, and they did the same thing, saying that people spoke and saying that, but it was let's get back to what makes America strong type of thing. And so I think that I would assume or hope that it was very similar of no, this is a cool part of what makes our country unique is being able to go experience this art. Let's be able to continue that.
Right. And I do think the producers handled it well and speaking with us about why it was important that we continue. And
super interesting. Didn't even think about that. Yeah, definitely.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
I want to talk in a pivot. So this will be a very hard pivot, hard to pivot from that. But I want to pivot to talking about the theories of Mistoffelees, because you obviously get to be told a backstory in the rehearsal of your 5 weeks and then in Atlantic City figured out. But I'm also curious to hear a little bit about what did you add? So who were the relationships you added or played off of? And then how much did that add to the 6th grader version of what you saw? Because you obviously watched as a 6th grader and thought, hey, dance heavy. Now you learn, here's what he's all about. how does that, like, tell me a little bit about like what your thoughts were there.
Well, the sixth grader version, and actually even the version in my head up until rehearsal started, was that I just did the solo. That like I have the whole night off and then I come down and do the solo.
You don't dance anything else.
It did not. I was like, because there's a costume change, right? So I didn't even know he was in the rest of the show. Yeah. So that was a shift, but I played him older. I played him. I think some people play him as a kitten. I didn't see him that way. I don't even remember being told. Yeah, I know you've talked about like the 3 words, and I don't remember being told the 3 words. I actually just took my character from the song. You know, his manner is vague and aloof. You would think there was nobody shyer. So I really played him that way and didn't connect with the other cats very much on stage. I really felt like he was a little bit above it. And there was definitely the connection with Tugger and with Victoria. And also I felt there was a connection with Cassandra. But those were the cats that I really interacted with and really didn't like, I didn't play. I didn't feel like he was a playful
so
cat.
you leaned into that shy part. Like, I'm gonna dance and be around, but I don't really need to be here. Like I'm very introvert of the tribe. Absolutely. Yeah. I felt like he was, and also felt like he was a little bit above it. And, you know, he doesn't speak in the version that I did. He didn't sing. And so he says one word. He says Old Deuteronomy, like when they sent, he's the first one to sense that Old Deuteronomy is coming, or the first one to acknowledge it. And then he says presto at the beginning of the solo. And that's pretty much it. That's all you say the entire time. I mean, he sings with the chorus, but like as solo lines, that's all I had. Okay. I kind of love that. You're in this show that's like very dance and song heavy, and they're like, you just focus on the dance and hum in the background. Absolutely. I was like, I'm trying not to destroy the chorus. Yeah. So as you have now, like, you've also listened to the show and you've heard a lot of different versions, and you're obviously familiar with Mistoffelees. Where do you think some of these relationships come from? Because there's a lot of like, he's mixed into a lot of the fan fiction with Tugger and all kinds of stuff. And it seems like you didn't play it that way, but it definitely, it's there in some capacity. Well, I feel like I may have contributed to some of that because, so the guy that was Stan Stanley, who was playing Rum Tum Tugger, and I actually were dating the entire tour. Okay. So I'm sure there was some, chemistry there on stage, and some, because we had a relationship. And it was early days of the internet too, because it's like 2001. And so the fan fiction, I remember that was new to us. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that was out there. We didn't play it that way, certainly. That's so interesting. So you are a real life Tuggoffelees at the time. Do you feel like there was maybe some like subconscious mannerisms of that you had the offstage chemistry that you maybe brought on stage? Because you are you're together a decent amount, and like he sings your song or the line of your song. Like there is, like, I can understand why they pull some of that stuff together. Absolutely. But did you feel that you had even an extra layer because you were dating? I'm sure there was, that we weren't like necessarily conscious of it, but I know that like after the solo, we sit together on the tire while Grisabella sings Memory. And, I remember I'm dying at that moment. I don't get to go off stage and get like a sip of water after that 7-minute solo. Yeah. Now I have to like go and sit there and listen to, this huge, beautiful song. But I really just want to get off stage. Yeah. And he was always there to like, calm me down, like breathe. It was, so I'm sure there was some of that there that people could pick up on. And he sang the entire song in our case. So there is that relationship that's built.
into the show.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear this. There's been a Bomb Ballerina Tugger marriage. Episode just released as we're recording this, but they kind of noticed like there was a moment of like, oh, watching him like Tugger during the show was when it was like, wow, okay, maybe this is a person. Was it like during rehearsals during the show? Was it off stage where you two realized like, oh, we should date? Or did you see Tugger and watch him do his number and be like, wow, I'm on to date this guy?
Probably some of that. Yeah. I mean, it's I definitely remember being very impressed with his talent. And we were both from the South, and we started dating very early on in the tour. But in Atlantic City, we were by the end of previews, we were together. So we started dating pretty quickly. I think that, and they're, having somebody sing your song every night, and like, there's that, we worked closely together. I don't know. There's something that, I don't know which came first, actually.
No, it's probably an unanswerable question, especially when you're thinking back. Has it been 20 years? Trying to think back to that moment.
Yeah, 20 years.
But it's fun. It's funny because of how much those two characters are placed together in fan fiction, and the amazing artists that like the Cats fan art. It's most of the stuff, and then you hear it's like same thing with the Bomb Ballerina and Tugger. That's another one, and then it's like, oh, they got married, and oh, they're dating. Like I've always wondered, is it like it's also still you're working together and you're doing something super physical and very close to each other. And when you're on tour, you're literally together at all moments of the day together. Exactly. So it's like, there's some of that's just how, like it was probably bound to happen. I'm sure I know there are a lot. There's a couple that people have like not wanted to have recorded. And I've heard more that were like, oh, let's not get that one live. But I know there's a lot of dating that happens within, but it shocks me at how much it's the characters that also have the rumors. And so it is a good question that you're saying is like, did you contribute to that rumor and like you helped bring that forward? Or is it just like we cast for personalities that might fit, that would date well? Like it's a really unanswerable question that's really kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think there's something to it, probably both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Was there any Mistoffelees gets a lot of like interesting fan interactions because you are a solo number, you are like a very like featured dancer, and it is like a dance heavy part where a lot of people come. Did you have some like fun or unique like post show stage door interactions with fans on tour?
Yeah, I mean the fans were insane, amazing, but I mean like they would come fully dressed in costumes that sometimes were as good as ours, and that was just new to me. And they would give pieces of art and things that they had made, and it was very special and humbling, and that somebody cared that much to not only take the time to wait after the show to meet you, but also had made this thing ahead of time. I still have them. They're 20 years later, they're still objects that are meaningful to me.
What's the favorite? Like, what's the one thing that you have? Do you have a couple?
Someone made a mask that was just beautiful. Like, I don't even know how they made it, but and then I have some pieces of art that were drawn and I framed, and it was really special. But also, it was also the beginning of of blogs and internet, and so there were people that were counting the number of turns I did and like writing about it. And he only did 27 tonight, and it was bizarre. I remember my dad would call and say, "Do you know somebody said you only did 27 turns?" And I'm like, "You need to stop reading. You need to stop reading that. That's not necessarily helpful." But and stop reporting it to me also.
Yeah, it is like a bizarre internet time, because this is like the AOL era, right? Like we're still
absolutely, yeah.
We're at that point where there is a blog is like I don't even want to say it's a Tumblr version, but it was like people are unfiltered thoughts and like a very weird kind of old looking, like it feels so antiquated thinking back on it, especially with how social media has completely shifted it. But it was, you had those super fans and they had an outlet and they were a very active bunch.
Absolutely.
On that. Like the Cats fans had multiple sites that were keeping track of who went on and how they did this and what was happening. And it's where a lot of the theories come from.
Yeah. I mean, they would come to different cities. They would fly different places. And it was very humbling. And it also, I put a lot of pressure on my performance and myself in the show. I think in some part because it had such a strong impact on my life and at a young age. And I realized how it really did, kind of inform some life decisions and where my life went. So I felt like every time I went on that stage, I felt like I had the ability to maybe reach somebody in that way. And so I felt an enormous amount of pressure as far as the performance that I gave.
You're reaching the sixth grader version of yourself. Like you're going back to, you were in the audience and saw that moment and realized your career trajectory was going to change, because like you decided your career at that moment. And so it's kind of cool to be able to be on the stage on the other side of it and knowing that in that audience there's probably a sixth grader or somebody else who is having that same thought.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Cats, there's no fourth wall because they're in the junkyard. Mm-hmm. The audience is actually, you're not ignoring them. You recognize them and you're allowing them to stay. And so you're able to look at them and look at them in the eyes and make those connections with audience members. I think that's also something that really does create these fans and this relationship, because the performers are actually having a relationship with the audience members, which is not the case in most theater, right? Like, the audience is not acknowledged, but in Cats they are.
You start in the audience.
Absolutely, yeah, with green eyes, and so and you go out in the audience in the naming of Cats, and so you do have a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so unique of a show and kind of a cool piece. But you now teach. Do you teach any of the Cats numbers?
I do. So I teach mostly ballet, but if I'm teaching musical theater, I will teach the end of the ball usually. It still resonates with me because the end of the ball is like that. You've been dancing for like 13 minutes and then there's this huge swell of music and you do a very simple gesture, but you really need the audience to applaud because you are so exhausted.
Yeah.
And you need them to give you something back and you need that energy to get you to the end. And when it works, it is just so beautiful because you really are doing something so simple. But the light shift and the music, it just brings the audience to a place where they want to acknowledge and applaud. And so I teach that part a lot.
I love it. You teach them the part without doing the 13 minutes before. It's like, here, you just do the ending, but don't be worn out by it.
Right. This is the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm sure you give them a standing ovation every time so they can get the energy still.
Every time.
Okay. I want to do some rapid fire.
Okay.
And then we can get to our, most important question. If you could go on, obviously, let's ignore your singing and everything else. But if you could go on for one day, any cat, if you could just do the track, who would you want to perform as?
Tugger, 100%.
Tugger. You want to flip the other side of the script and go and just wreak havoc. Yeah,
I think it's a great part, and I think it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats? Ignore actors.
Okay, this is hard. Okay, my favorite, I love Cassandra. My least favorite, it's hard. Maybe Growl Tiger.
Growl Tiger, yeah. Okay.
Not Gus.
Not Growl Gus, Tiger. Yeah. One of his characters. Do you think that those answers are influenced by your playing as Mistoffelees, or is it just more as like you, McCree, is the human? Like that's who I wouldn't like.
Oh, that's hard to say. It's probably somewhat influenced by the role.
Yeah, because you did it for so long. You're just like,
and that's how I saw them, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. What's your favorite song from the show?
Oh, Grisabella the Glamour Cat. There's that one
that little moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and Demeter and Bomb and I remember our Demeter just was amazing. And during that, Jessica Lee Patty, and we had, everyone had recorders that first week when we were singing. And so I went out and bought a recorder because they all had them and they were recording their parts, but I didn't really know what to do with it. So I would just record her singing because that was that song. They were all like practicing their parts when they got home. And I was showing my friends and like, listen to this girl sing. She's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that song.
I love hearing, because the first one you said recorder, I thought you were talking about like the instrument. And I'm like, that's kind of strange. Maybe like, then I'm like, no, wait, this is pre-iPhone era.
They're
recording
like cassette tapes.
They need that to be able to play back their part to listen, because there's no YouTube version to go after. There's no quick iPhone recording.
Yep.
That's hilarious. I always ask a fun one. I was going to ask you about which cat was going to be in the best nomad on tour, but now knowing that you spent so much time in Atlantic City, which cat do you think would thrive in Atlantic City? I have two answers to this. I think there's two.
I can't
two
wait
clear
to
ones
hear
for
yours.
me.
Well, I think that maybe Jenny Annie-Dots would she could have some fun at the slots.
I didn't think about her, but I do see that.
Yeah, I think she could let loose. And
that's a good answer. I had not thought about Jenny.
All right, so who's yours?
Well, I thought first came to mind immediately was Buster Jones. He's in the high roller suite. He's going to be eating his way through town. Like, he's going to have a blast there. And then the other one I thought about, I kind of had the other two I couldn't decide between, but one was Tugger, where you've got just being able to go and kind of be unapologetically yourself and nobody's going to care. And then the other is McCavity, because Atlantic City has a history of like kind of crimey mob bossy versions. So I feel like he might live there. He might be from there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that actually he might be from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's his base. That's his root home. Although this is a UK based show, but when we make the America version, he's from Atlantic City.
Deal.
Okay. Most important question. I've argued at length. I don't think Grisabella is the right choice. So I'm hoping you're going to say Gus, because you just made it very clear that it's Growl Tiger, not Gus. But are you going to defend Grisabella, or are you going to pick somebody else?
No, I think Gus. It's time. I've listened to this podcast before, so I know your feelings. But we just accepted her back. Let's give her a year. I mean, it could be a great time for Grisabella back in the tribe. We shouldn't send her away like right away.
That's where I say so here's one question I've always been curious about, and I know the like current tourists talked about it. Did you ever talk about this as a cast? Like, did you ever think about it, or was it just like, nope, she's the choice, we're accepted?
Yeah, no, that was never
no one ever
talked about that. Never thought about it.
Never thought like your Gus wasn't like, why is it not my turn?
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm actually influencing the show, because I know the current cast talks about it a lot now.
I think you might be.
I love it. So I want to ask a couple other questions though, because I am pro Gus. How do you think Old Deuteronomy makes his decision?
You're right. I mean, like, there needs to be a rubric, and the cats need to be aware of this rubric and how he's making this decision. I think he just. Whose turn is it? Who needs the opportunity to come back? And in that case, I don't necessarily think Grisabella,
needs it. Yeah.
Needs to leave right now. Gus he's like barely hanging on.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think he's got the most non-Grisabella votes by a lot. It is still around 50-50. Of not Gus, but of non-Grisabella. So I feel like that's a pretty good mark to be able to have a show that is very definitively answered, to have one cat being the choice, and to have more than half of the people I talk to say, I don't buy it. I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I also like your idea of it changing. I think it should be random. I think no cat should know. Like there's like a light, like a spotlight goes on one cat.
Okay. So spotlight version of just where they line up at the end, and it's like we don't know who it's going to be today, and it's almost like the I could see it like what was that show? Press Your Luck. Do you remember Press Your Luck with the whammies where the thing goes around the board? Yeah. I think the light should just be going, and then all of a sudden it just stops.
I love it. You get a different show every night.
Yeah, I'm still big on audience participation because since you are in you allow the audience into the junkyard, and as you said, they're part of the whole show. I love the idea of them being able to choose, because I do think you would get some really interesting data off of that too. Like, does one city like this cat more than others? Like, did we have a younger crowd and they voted for a younger cat? Like, there's a lot of ways it'd be really fascinating to see. It also would become kind of funny. I think this would be hard as performers because you all are incredible in putting in some stuff, but like it puts a little bit of extra, like I got to give it my A game today because they're voting at the end. And if I'm not my best, maybe I don't get chosen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm for audience participation.
Yeah.
Most of them have their phones out anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. They're already bootlegging this for you. They got their phone in their hand.
Yeah.
It'd be easy technology. And then we could vote. And then, just somebody else hops up on the tires to go up.
I always wanted to ride the tire.
Did you never get to?
No.
Like even, just messing around during rehearsals, or is it like union based so expensive for them to run it that they're not going to do it?
They were definitely not going to let us have rides on that tire.
Yeah. I asked when I did some work with the Six tour, I was like, can I go up? And they were like, absolutely not. Like you cannot at all think about that.
You should have asked to come down the Mistoffelees rope.
Oh,
that's fun.
They were very much anything on stage is a lot more challenging than anything not on stage, which I get. Well, this has been super fun. How can people stay in touch with you? Social media, websites, anything?
So you can. My Instagram is McCree O'Kelley, McCreeOK.
Awesome. We'll tag that too. So thank you for coming on, sharing your stories and sharing your Tuggoffelees relationship for the world to add to fuel to that fire. And it's been super fun.
It was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.